Part 15. National Games Online Game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 141. Second home, the center of the world. Qiyao City, one of the 7 main cities, is also a city located in the very center of the mainland. Because the distance between Qiyao City and the other 6 cities is about the same, for countless years, the city has been a perennial gathering of traders and people from the other 6 cities. The other 6 nations transported their goods or specialties to Qiyao City, and then traded them in exchange for the materials they needed to ship back. Over time, this Qiyao City has become the most prosperous city among the 7 main cities. And this main city is even more magnificent than the other 6 main cities. Just by looking at the appearance and the flow of people entering the city from all directions, you can know how prosperous the city is. But what is strange is that in the other 6 main cities, every few hundred years, there will be some turmoil, such as snatching the position of the city lord. However, since the founding of the city, there has never been any turmoil or usurpation. In such a prosperous city, it is really strange that there is no such rebellion. Okay. There is still one last hour. Starting today, for half a month, the city gate will be opened and closed late, and the entry and exit of the city will be restricted every day. Something to do, hurry up, the last hour. At the gates of the city, a soldier in armor came out and shouted at the crowd lining up to enter the city. It's almost dusk now, and in the past, the gates of the city were closed in the dark, but now, it seems to be closing early. And it's like this for the next half a month. However, the vendors who were about to enter the city had no objection to this, as if they had become accustomed to it. It was just that he quickened his pace a little, and hurried to enter the city as the gates were closed. In the crowd, there was a red figure frowning suspiciously. This figure is Gongsunli. At this time, she was still barefoot on the ground that had been exposed to the sun for a day, as if she didn't feel hot at all. Yo-Yo was still following her. At this time, it had been more than half a month since she left Baiyun City. According to the guidance on the map, the current location of this Qiyao City is the location where Chang'an City was located back then. Although she hadn't entered the city yet, she already felt that this was not Chang'an at all. But because the map showed that it was here, she decided to go into the city anyway. It's just that she is very confused now, it's still early, and this Qiyao City will not let people enter. Hey! Suddenly, the 2 vendors in front of her sat on the cart and chatted. It's the annual festival again, and this year I'm unlucky, just in time, it's really unlucky. Alas, this can't be helped, but it's okay. The goods can be sold faster, and then it's good to drill in the inn and not come out, and when the Fuyu festival is over, go back directly. I also know that I don't go out in my room, but after all, I feel a little hairy in my heart. Then what's the solution? I walked for a few months to arrive, and I can't go back, right? Alas. Listening to the chat between the 2 vendors in front of him, Gongsunli was even more puzzled. Fuyu festival, so this half-month is like a lockdown. Gongsunli raised his eyebrows, he couldn't figure it out, so he didn't think about it anymore. An hour later, Gongsunli finally entered Qiyao City before the city gate closed. And as soon as she entered the city, she screamed in the live broadcast room. Hey, hey! Look at this Qiyao City. This Nima is a different world. Why do I think this is the ancient city of our Xia kingdom? Isn't this the same as the buildings of our old days? We have a preserved ancient town here, and the architecture of this Qiyao city really seems to be. What is that? Selling sugar gourds? And the candy pinchers? Isn't this what our Xia kingdom looked like in ancient times? It's exactly the same as in the TV series. I saw this Qiyao city. At this time, the main road was crowded with people, and it was extremely lively. But what is surprising is that no matter what kind of buildings in the city, all of them are full of elements of the ancient style of the Xia kingdom. Moreover, these buildings are so new that even the green tiles on the roof still seem to be shining. The clothes on the people's bodies, and even the salutes between acquaintances on the street here, are exactly the same as in the ancient Xia kingdom. Sure. I'm pretty sure. In the official live broadcast room, Han Li and several other experts stared at the screen with wide eyes. Even his voice trembled a little. I'm pretty sure that the architecture and humanistic style of this place is exactly the same as the style of our ancient Tang dynasty. Has the culture of our Xia kingdom been influenced so far? Tang dynasty, Chang'an was the national capital at that time, so this second home, could it be that this Qiyao city is Chang'an in another world? The culture of my Xia country. Ha ha ha. Come. Look at your Western culture. Is there such a far-reaching influence as the culture of my Xia country? Even the second home has the culture of my Xia country. Don't be too rampant, maybe it's your Xia kingdom learning from another world. Phew, you stinky and shameless, this is obviously the culture of the Tang dynasty in our Xia kingdom in ancient times. Even the buildings and people's clothes are the same. In the live broadcast room, Xia Quarren suddenly felt extremely proud, and many people had already recorded and shared their screens on the internet. And Gongsunli didn't know that at this time, she was walking along the main road with the crowd. However, it is worth mentioning that the clothes that Gongsunli is wearing now seem to match the scene at this time. Is full of Xiaoquavang, but Youyu who is following behind him is a little eye-catching. This is not Chang'an, it is more prosperous than here. As Gongsunli wandered around the city, she directly concluded that Qiyao City was Qiyao City, not Chang'an. At most, it had something to do with Chang'an. Otherwise, the buildings of Qiyao City would not be so Xiaoquavang. And when the people in the live broadcast room heard Gongsunli's words, they exclaimed again. It's not Chang'an, it's so prosperous. If it's Chang'an, what kind of grand occasion should it be? The audience in Xiaguo is another wave of boasting. However, Gongsunli did find something. This Qiyao city is really a festival, and there are many people selling those small flowers on the street. It's just that what makes Gongsunli puzzled is that this festival should be a very happy thing, and the people here are indeed smiling on their faces. But she always felt that the happiness of these people seemed to be a little reluctant. It's as if they don't want to celebrate the festival. Coupled with what the two vendors said in front of her when she entered the city, she was even more convinced that this festival was not easy to think about. And her arm began to feel warm from time to time, and she knew that it was something she had come up with. But here, too, is not a good place. Baby, after being patient for a while, I will let you out when I find a place to live. Gongsunli comforted Nan Nan as he walked forward, thinking about finding a place to live first. Otherwise, it will be dark in a while. As for the Fuyu festival, there are still days to let myself observe. Oops. Suddenly, with an exclamation, Gongsunli only felt that he had hit something. Then, he saw a blind old man not far in front of him, and he managed to stand still and not fall. Hit someone, Grandpa. At this time, a little girl of 6 or 7 years old ran behind the blind old man, and the little girl was still holding a lollipop in her hand. I'm sorry, my grandfather didn't mean to. The little girl saw that the blind old man was fine, and hurried to apologize to Gongsunli. My grandfather. He can't see the road with his eyes. The little girl lowered her head as she spoke, as if she was afraid that Gongsunli would trouble her. And the crowd shopping next to him also began to point at this time. The old blind man has bumped into someone again, hey. This blind man, sooner or later, will have to pay for his granddaughter. Tisk, if you really run into a hard stubble one day, this old blind man's family will have to pay for it. In the crowd, many people spoke ill of each other, looking at the blind old man's eyes full of weirdness. It seems that in addition to disliking this old blind man, these people also write hatred. This point was naturally captured by Gongsunli. Hate, this old man, what did you do that people and gods are angry about? Gongsunli thought in his heart. National Games online game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 142. And at this time, the blind old man also reacted. Bang bang. The old wooden stick in his hand began to hit the ground again. It seems that he wants to come to the front of Gongsunli. Grandpa, here, I'll pull you. Then the little girl ran over and helped the blind old man. The old man stood in front of Gongsun and began to speak. Oh! This festival is coming, and there are more people on the street again. Old man, these eyes were unable to see decades ago, and now that they are getting older, their ears are no longer good. The blind old man stretched out a hand and rubbed his shoulder, talking as he rubbed it. He felt like he had hit an iron plate. Unexpectedly, I accompanied my little granddaughter out to buy rock sugar gourd, and I couldn't even walk well. I'm really sorry, I hit the little brother. As soon as the old man spoke, as if he felt something, the hand that had been rubbing his shoulder paused. His face was full of surprise. No. No, you're a woman. The blind old man was shocked when he thought about the moment he had just hit. This. How could it be a woman who was bumped into by me just now? Just now, I obviously felt that I was under a huge force. This. Who the hell is she? In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through the blind old man's heart. Grandpa, Grandpa. Just then, the little girl spoke. Grandpa, how did you know that you bumped into a sister? The little girl's face was full of curiosity, and she opened her eyes wide and said, Grandpa, let me tell you, this sister is still very beautiful, more beautiful than Ki. The old blind man listened to the little girl's words, and a touch of pride appeared on his face. Obviously, he was happy to be praised by his granddaughter. Then Grandpa naturally has a way to know, Grandpa is amazing, right? The old blind man touched the head of the colorful clothes, and then turned his head to Gongsunli. With a hint of solemnity on his face. Little girl, the old blind man is here to compensate you. Today, I am really embarrassed to offend the girl. The girl didn't hurt anything, did she? The old blind man made a gesture and asked. No, you don't have to care. Gongsunli stared at the blind old man with interest, as if he was very interested in him. She smelled a familiar smell on the old blind man's body. It's just that it's very thin, and it seems like a long time has passed. Hearing Gongsunli's words, the old blind man also breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that the woman in front of him must not be simple, and if he wanted to find trouble, he would really be finished. And in the same way, he is also very curious about Gongsunli. I'm so thankful that this girl didn't hold the old blind man accountable. Although the old blind man can't see it, I can feel that the girl is from outside, and she must have come to Kiyeo City to do great things. The old blind man sighed slightly in his heart. Well, if I bump into you today, I'll show you the way, although this girl is not simple, but... The old blind man's mind flowed, and his body leaned forward slightly, as if he wanted to whisper to Gongsunli. Girl, hurry up and leave Kiyeo City, what is the matter waiting for the Fuyu festival to come? The old blind man came to Gongsunli and whispered to Gongsunli. And Gongsunli raised his eyebrows. Of course she won't. Old man, is this the hospitality of your Kiyeo City? I just entered the city, and you drove me away. Gongsunli smiled slightly, and did not shy away from saying these words. And the old blind man's expression immediately became a little ugly. You little girl. The old blind man was a little anxious, and his hand holding the cane trembled a little. I know that you have some skills, but you don't dare to say some nonsense. Gongsunli looked at his trembling hands, and the smile on the corner of his mouth couldn't help but become more obvious. All right, don't pretend, no one pays attention to you. What? Hearing Gongsunli's words, the old blind man's trembling hand suddenly stabilized. He. The old blind man was shocked, but an embarrassed smile leaked from his face. It seems that this time I really looked away. The old blind man shook his head, and then arched his hand at Gongsunli. Little girl, I'm really sorry, the old blind man has a bad reputation in this Kiyao city, and if you don't pretend to be weak, others will bully me. Please girl, don't take it to heart. The old blind man's face was a little unnatural, he first bumped into others, then deceived others, and finally was exposed. Gongsunli always had a smile on his face, staring at the old blind man without saying a word. She knew that the old blind man had secrets. Alas! Girl, this. Come with me. The old blind man sighed helplessly, then turned around and walked forward with the colorful clothes. Grandpa, where are you going to take your sister? Glancing at Gongsunli, who was following behind, Ki looked up at the old blind man. Grandpa wants to invite my sister to the house as a guest. What, aren't you welcome? Really? As soon as Ki heard that she invited Gongsun to leave her home, her eyes instantly shone brightly. Of course it's true. That's great. Ha ha ha. Beautiful sister came to my house as a guest. Ki immediately jumped up happily. After only walking for a while, the old blind man took Gongsunli into a small alley. The alley is long, but it's quiet, and the brick-paved pavement is covered with moss. This shows that very few people will come. Walking down this alley, it's my home. Ki was already riding on Yu's back at this time, and she was elated behind Gongsunli. The old blind man knocked on the ground with the cane. As soon as Gongsunli entered the alley, he felt that he was being watched. But there was nothing unusual on her face. Squeak. The wooden door at the end of the alley was pushed open, and the old blind man walked in with his grandson. The architectural style in the courtyard, as on the outside, is antique, and there are even a few flowers blooming. Ki, go, pour a glass of water for my sister. When the two of them sat down in the courtyard, the old blind man directly opened the colorful clothes. He, girl, I don't know what the girl's name is. Gongsun Li. Gongsun Li replied lightly. Gongsun Li, ha ha ha. This name is good, although I can't see it, but I can guess that the girl must be a dragon and phoenix among people. It's not like I'm a blind man who forgets his name. The old blind man laughed, and suddenly, the conversation changed, and his tone became a little low. I just don't know, Miss Gongsun, what are you doing in Kiyao City? Seeing the old blind man's serious face, the expression on Gongsun Li's face also changed slightly. I'm not here in Kiyao City. Gongsun Li looked at the old blind man, trying to see how his expression had changed. I'm going to Chang'an. Gongsun Li said word by word. What? The old blind man immediately stood up. When Chang. The crutches also fell to the ground. You said you were going to Chang'an. The old blind head trembled, this time, it was not pretended. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. National Games online game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 143. The old blind man's expression was frightened, and his eyes were already blind. It looks a little scary. But where would Gongsun be afraid of this? Gongsun Li's eyes lit up, and a smile appeared on his face. This time he found the right person, he really knew Chang'an. Chang'an, this word, on this continent, except for some ancient classics, there are really not many records. Therefore, those who know Chang'an are generally either strong and in a high position, or, like the old blind man, who has his own secrets, and is not an ordinary person at first glance. What, you say, blind people are ordinary? If you can't see with your eyes, you can know that Gongsunli is a woman, you say he is ordinary? Chang'an, where are you now? Gongsunli stared at the old blind man with a pair of good-looking eyes. She is now 100% sure that this Qiyao city also has something to do with Chang'an. It's just that what she was puzzled about was that when the old blind man heard Chang'an's reaction, he seemed to be afraid. This made her very puzzled. Chang'an, shouldn't it be a big city? Even if it has disappeared, but looking at the architecture of Qiyao city, it should also be learning from Chang'an. Why be afraid? Grandpa. It just so happened that at this time, Ki ran over with 2 cups of tea. Grandpa, what's wrong with you? Sit down and drink a glass of water. Seeing the trembling appearance of the old blind man, Ki hurriedly helped him to sit down. At this time, the old blind man finally relented. Ki, Grandpa hasn't eaten your cooking for a long time, how about you cook today and let my sister taste your cooking? Is it really okay, Grandpa? Ki is still a child after all, and it is easy to be fooled by the old blind man to cook. And in the courtyard, Gongsunli and him were left again. Girl, you. Are you really here to find Chang'an? Yes. Gongsunli nodded uncertainly. But, that Chang'an, you don't know anything about it, so you dare to go. Why not? Gongsunli's tone did not change at all, as if he was saying a trivial matter, domineering. The old blind man was speechless for a moment. Girl, I know that you are not an ordinary person, this time you came here to look for Chang'an city, and my old blind man doesn't know what is going on. However, my old blind man advises the girl, let's break this thought, Chang'an city is no longer accessible. Why can't you enter? Hearing this, Gongsunli asked again. Alas! The old blind man sighed heavily, raised the teacup in his hand and took a sip, and said slowly. Don't tell the girl, these eyes of mine were blinded when I was young on the edge of Chang'an city. Lao Litio exhaled a breath of turbid air and slowly raised his head. Although there was no trace of brilliance in his eyes, Gongsunli felt that he saw a trace of remembrance in his eyes. Chang'an, the city that has been buried underground for countless years. The old blind man picked up the crutch next to him and struck the ground twice. But Gongsunli's eyes lit up. Underground. This seems to make sense. Chang'an city and Qiyao city overlap on the map. Generally speaking, Qiyao city will only be thought to be Chang'an, but if it is said that Chang'an is under Qiyao city, it seems to make sense. Gongsunli squinted his eyes and thought, and the old blind man's voice sounded again. Chang'an city, I don't know how many years ago the city, presumably at that time, it should have been extremely prosperous. However, I don't know when it began. Chang'an became an underground city, and it was occupied by something called the Demon Seed. Demon Seed. When Gongsunli heard this, there was a hint of surprise on his face. Since I was sensible, I have remembered that Qiyao city, within 7 days after the Fuyu festival every year, that is, after 7 days, must pay tribute to Chang'an city. The old blind man's voice was a little low, but Gongsunli heard a strong unwillingness. This tribute, but it's too miserable, every time you pay tribute, the tribute is different, but it's extremely cruel. Hearing this, Gongsunli was a little curious, and at the same time, the light in his eyes was a little dangerous. She knew that this demon seed was in the king's backstory, and it was extremely evil. This tribute is not for chickens, ducks, and fish, but for the soul of a person. And it must be the soul of a living person. But the sad thing is that the person who was chosen as a tribute, he will not die. People have 3 souls and 7 spirits, and every time they pay tribute, they will not completely take it. Therefore, the person who is regarded as a tribute will not die, but the future life will definitely be unsatisfactory, more serious, a lifetime of dementia, most of them, a lifetime of muddy, without the slightest strength, can only slowly recover through time. For countless years, Kiyeo City has spent its time like this, so even if it is very prosperous here, no one wants to come and rob the city lord here, because once it is messed up, the fate of the city lord will. And, over time, the city lord of Kiyeo City, he will also catch some outsiders as tribute, but he doesn't dare to go overboard. Only in the few days of the Fuyu festival, the outsiders who are alone in Kiyeo City are their targets. However, 50 years ago, a genius came out of Kiyeo City, a martial arts genius. Speaking of this, the old blind man's tone was a little excited. He was only in his 20s, and he had already cultivated to a height that human beings had never had, so he wanted to change all this, gathered a large number of human warriors, and led people to kill them on the day of the tribute. But what makes people desperate is that the power of that demon seed far exceeds human imagination, and it was killed without even entering the gate of Chang'an City. In the end, only one human genius escaped, but his eyes were also permanently blind because of the contamination of the demon seed. At this point, the old blind man's eyes were already full of tears. Gongsunli heard self-reproach in his tone. Since then, the lord of the city has changed, replaced by a lackey of the demon seed, the guards of the city, and whenever it is the Fuyu festival, they will wantonly arrest those who are hidden in the ordinary people and some outsiders. At this, the old blind man was silent. It is conceivable that his life in the city after the failure of his rebellion, it would be good if others did not avoid him. The old blind man also felt that he couldn't stand the people who killed him in the past. So, girl, let's stay here these days. Although my old blind man has a bad reputation, no one dares to come here. When these days pass, you will go back and look for Chang'an, or break off. The old blind man didn't want to know where Gongsunli knew about Chang'an at this time. Just warned Gongsun to leave that place and not to go. National Games Online Game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 144. In the past few days, let's stay here with my old blind man, at least, there are people guarding outside, and the guards of Kiyeo City will not tear their faces. The old blind man stood up and shook his head. In his heart, Gongsunli was a little girl with a good family background, and he didn't know where he saw the classics of Chang'an City, so he ran over. That's why Gongsunli was allowed to live here, so that the safety was guaranteed. Otherwise, a little girl from outside is hanging outside, and during the sensitive period of the past few days, there will be some chaos if you can't keep it. Grandpa, sister, the rice is ready, come and eat. At this time, the voice of Ki came from the stove. The sky was getting darker, and in the house, the colored clothes had been lit with oil lamps. Sister, try my cooking. Inside, 3 people gathered around a small broken table, on which a worn oil lamp glowed dimly. At first glance, it's an old object, and that's it, it's still a colorful dress that went out to borrow it. In their house, they never use lights. And Gongsunli didn't let Yo-Yu shine, after all, this light didn't affect her much. What's more, not everyone can see the magic of Yo-Yo. Sister, after dinner, you can go to the east room to rest, I have already cleaned up. Ki gulped the rice in her mouth while muttering. Gongsunli nodded, and then continued to deal with the piece of cooking cake in his hand. Knock knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. The old blind man who was eating made a move. Grandpa, are you going to open the door? Ki asked. Open, let them come. The old blind man put the bowl in his hand on the table and wiped his mouth. Ki obediently ran out, and soon the yard became noisy, and there were many people listening to the sound. Old man, I heard that you brought an outsider in today, are you okay? Before anyone could be seen, a young man's voice came into the room. The tone was a little concerned. It's not me saying, old man, at this time, don't you dare to bring someone over casually. The next moment, a tiger-headed man entered the house, and those who came with him were standing in the courtyard. Boyjong, you brought someone here again. The old blind man stood up and smiled in the direction of the door. Yes, come and see, I heard from the brothers that you came back with a girl this evening, aren't I afraid that something will go wrong? The young man walked in quickly, helped the old blind man to sit down, and then set his eyes on Gongsunli, who was sitting on the other side of the table. Zhang Quan couldn't help but be surprised. This woman was brought back by the old blind man today. You're so beautiful. Zhang Quan sighed in his heart, and then, he saw the two ears on Gongsunli's head, because the room was a little dark, and he didn't notice it at the first time. This is even more surprising. The girl is a demon. Zhang Quan didn't care about the old blind man for a while, and left his mouth in front of Gongsun. It's just that the tone is a little different, it seems that he doesn't want to be so affectionate with the demon clan. Hearing Zhang Quan's words, the old blind man's heartbeat also missed a beat, he couldn't see it, and he didn't feel a trace of demonic energy. But Zhang Quan's words, he believed it. But even so, he raised his hand. Zhang boy, don't worry, listen to my introduction to you. Girl, old man, I just knew that you were a demon, but I couldn't smell any demonic energy on you, it seems that the girl's path is indeed not simple. Hearing the words of the old blind man, Gongsunli smiled, she had never had any demonic energy on her, but only the breath of the demon seed. But after becoming the city lord of Baiun City, the dragon chi on his body seemed to have increased, just covering up the little remaining demon seed breath. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the old blind man would not take her home when she was on the street. Well, let me introduce it to you. This, Kid Zhang Quan, is the leader of our current demon slaying society, the demon slaying society. I think the girl knows what she does when she hears the name. Zhang boy, don't be nervous. Although this girl is a demon clan, I don't think she is deeply involved in the world, and Qiyao City recently happened to catch up with the Fuyu festival, so she took it in. When the festival is over, it's gone. The old blind man was quite serious, as if he was afraid that the two would have a conflict. At this time, Zhang Quan looked at Gongsunli, then at the old blind man, and said, Old man, in the eyes of our demon-slaying society, you are highly respected, and it stands to reason that we will definitely listen to your words. However, this girl's origin is unknown, and now that she has caught up with such a time, those dog guards in the city have recently beaten up our demon slayer society, I'm afraid there will be an accident. After Zhang Quan finished speaking, he turned his head to Gongsunli and explained, Girl, I'm really sorry. What I said just now is not that I don't trust the girl. The girl can sit here, it means that the girl knows about us, our demon killing club has been really stormy recently, and we need to be careful. Zhang Quan's face was a little anxious, as if he was afraid that Gongsunli would misunderstand. All right, don't talk about it. The old blind man reached out and patted Zhang Quan. You're late, I've already promised the girl. I'm an old blind man, I've never bothered you to kill demons for decades, and this time, it's a reluctant request from me. This girl, she has been living here for the past few days, and as for the safety here, I believe in the demon slaying society. Can you say yes? The old blind man stood up directly. I'm old man. Alas. Okay. It's all up to you. Don't worry. With our demon slaying club, there will be no problems here. This girl's safety will not be a problem. Zhang Quan was helpless, so he had to nod and agree. Ha ha ha, you kid, I know you're good to my old blind man. The old blind man laughed twice, and then said, I talked to this girl about speculation, a girl's family, came all the way to Kiyao City, you say, it's not easy to. In the middle. The old blind man began to chatter again, and it was not until Zhang repeatedly assured that the old blind man nodded with satisfaction. And the people in the live broadcast room have already watched the fun. It's so simple, it's just so pitiful. Ha ha ha, this old gentleman is so cute. He thought that Gongsunli came here for the strength of 9 cows and 2 tigers, but he didn't know that Gongsunli slept all the way. And that Zhang, I thought Gongsunli was a trouble, haha. I don't know what their expression would be if they knew that Gongsunli was the city lord of one of the 7 main cities. Ha ha ha, this is Quan, a good person, but he has no eyesight. One of the 7 most powerful people in the world is standing in front of him, but he doesn't recognize it. No way, the news here should be a little slow. Tisk, protect Gongsunli, it's not me who blows, so far, the only one I think is qualified to say this is Li Xian, and I don't know who is more powerful, Li Xian or Gongsunli. In the live broadcast room, when I heard Zhang telling the old blind man about the recent actions of the demon killing club and protecting Gongsunli, I couldn't help but feel a little ridiculous. Finally, Zhang was ready to leave. Girl, since you have lived here, please pay attention to your safety in the past few days and try not to go out. Zhang clenched his fists and said to Gongsunli. Then he turned around and took his leave. The last few days were the busiest days for the city guards, and they were also the most stressful days for him to kill demons. Gongsunli looked at Zhang, and his eyes were shining. Hee. Girl, rest early, this demon-killing club is also respectful to me, they agreed, and the girl's safety will not have to worry. The old blind man sent Zhang away, turned his head and said to Gongsunli. National Games Online Game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 145. Sister, it's time to get up and eat. The next day, early in the morning, the sound of colorful clothes came from outside. Gongsunli turned over on the bed, looked at the girl in his arms, and a smile leaked from the corner of his mouth. She couldn't remember exactly how long it had been since no one had woken herself up. Therefore, even if I can't sleep in, I still feel a little warmth in my heart. Good morning, sister. Good morning, girl. Good morning. By the time Gongsunli came to the dining table, the old blind man was already sitting there. Today's old blind man has changed into clean clothes, and his hair is neatly tied behind his head, which looks a lot neater. Can you get used to resting last night? Gongsunli sat down, and the 3 of them chatted while eating. Of course, most of them were old blind men talking. Ki would occasionally interject to ask, and Gongsunli sat there quietly listening. She could always hear something different from the old blind man's words. The same is true for the audience in the live broadcast room. Mother. It's not me saying, it seems that when this old man was young, he really had some ability. You're kidding, genius, you know. I also held a bowl and ate while listening to stories, which felt very warm. Me too, I really want to go and eat with them. It's so old-fashioned, and Gongsunli is really easy to feed. You see that she never picks anything to eat? Yes, yes. Coarse tea and light rice are in her mouth, like a delicacy in the world. In the live broadcast room, just watching Gongsunli eat, people can discuss. In fact, although the old blind man's family lived in poverty, they were all helped by the brothers of the demon-slaying society. But these things that are eaten on weekdays are whole grains. It's not delicious, but it's definitely not unpalatable, it's just the food that ordinary people eat. Gongsunli sat at the dining table, eating quietly. This scene was like a picture. If it weren't for the table being too dirty, it would have been more perfect. Suddenly, Gongsun moved from the ears on his head. Smack! Gongsunli placed the bowl on the table. She heard a commotion in the street outside. But because the alley is so deep, you can only faintly hear a few sounds in the yard. The old blind man and Ki naturally heard it. Ha ha ha, girl, today is the first day of the Fuyu festival, and it's quite lively outside. This is the biggest festival in Kiyao City. The old blind man's tone was a little embarrassed. This festival should have been happy, but after the festival, it was a cruel tribute. And Ki's eyes are also shining. Really, it's very lively outside the Fuyu festival. Ki has secretly stood in the alley before, and the streets outside are all beating gongs and drums, and dancing. People are still wearing new clothes, but they are beautiful. Ki said happily, but this excitement has nothing to do with her. At most, she can only watch secretly. This demon-slaying society is hidden in Kiyao City, and it is naturally impossible for the guards in the city not to know that this is the territory of the demon-slaying society. It's just that I'm afraid of causing too much impact, so I won't deal with it with great fanfare. What's more, this demon-killing meeting can't be eliminated at all. So usually the city guards don't come to this place, but if you run out on your own, then they won't talk about it at all. Especially in the days of the Fuyu festival, there is a shortage of tribute, and it is not a double win to catch the people of the demon-slaying society to pay tribute. Therefore, Ki generally does not go out at all at this time. Gongsunli listened to the words of the two, and he was also a little lacking in interest. In fact, she didn't need to look at it. She knew that the set outside was probably the kind of gongs and drums in the ancient tradition of the Xia kingdom. She was really not interested in this. In the last few days, I can only come over in this small courtyard. They are guarding, and the arrest is the most fierce in the past few days, because after these few days, it will be time. After eating, with the help of washing the dishes in colorful clothes, the old blind man chatted with Gongsun again. Gongsunli nodded, indicating that he knew. In this way, these few days should be peaceful, and I will wait until the day of the tribute passes. A gleam flashed in his eyes. Gongsunli made a decision. This time, she must take advantage of the tribute to enter Chang'an City. The next few days will indeed be as predicted by Lao Litiu. No matter how lively it was outside, this small courtyard was always clean, and no outsiders came. And Zhang Quan, who Gongsun had seen once that day, never came again. Unfortunately, things will always change. On this day, the three of them had just finished eating, and Gongsunli and Ki were sitting in the courtyard itching yo-yo. Suddenly, Gongsun left the upper movement for a moment. It seems that there was an accident. Sister, what's wrong? Ki turned her head to look at Gongsunli. Gongsunli sighed slightly and said, "Go and open the door, your brother Zhangquan is here." Gongsunli had a smile on his face, and Ki's eyes were full of doubts. "Really, sister, don't lie to me. I didn't even hear a knock at the door," Ki said as she thought about walking to the door. And Gongsunli lowered his head slightly. Listening to the footsteps, there are at least a dozen people, but they must have just had a strenuous exercise. There is bloody smell, and a few are injured and breathing unsteadily. Behind them, there's a tail. That's the guards in the city. Gongsunli analyzed the information he heard in an instant. Yikes! Suddenly, the colorful clothes at the door exclaimed. "Haha, brother Zhangquan, are you really here?" Ki was very happy to see so many people coming, but Zhangquan's face was extremely solemn. "Ki, where's your grandfather?" Zhangquan's tone was a little anxious. Grandpa is in the house." Ki also saw that something was wrong with Zhangquan, and even the few people who followed him had wounds, so he immediately stopped making trouble. Zhangquan rushed in directly, and when he saw Gongsunli sitting in front of Yu, he was instantly stunned. Alas! Then with a sigh, he turned around and walked into the house. Old man, something really happened this time, let's get out of here. Before Zhongquan entered the house, he began to shout. And Gongsunli slightly hooked the corners of his mouth. I'm afraid, I can't go. Gongsunli stood up, clapped his hands, and walked towards the house. What's the matter, Boy Zhang? Say something slowly. The old blind man walked out slowly, and Zhongquan immediately surrounded him. This year, it is said that there are not enough people to pay tribute, and the guards in the city are now arresting people everywhere, almost all of them are outsiders. No, some of them have taken this opportunity to hit the head of our Demon Slayer Society, saying that you are harboring unknown people from other places, and now the guards are about to kill them. Zhongquan pointed to Gongsunli behind him, and his tone was extremely anxious. Our demon slaying club can't stop it, and many people and brothers are already seriously injured. What? After listening to the ins and outs, the old blind man's face changed in an instant. They really dare to make a big splash against the demon slaying society. Oh, old man, hurry, don't delay the time, you take the colorful clothes and this girl and leave quickly, we will break off. Zhongquan directly picked up the colorful clothes and stuffed them to a subordinate of the demon slaying society. You follow the old man, you must send the old man out of the city, and the old man will be handed over to you to take care of in the future, and you must take care of me, you know. Zhongquan yelled at his subordinates, and Ki was already scared and crying at this time. And Gongsunli kept standing by and watching, without saying a word. She suddenly found that she hadn't seen this kind of scene that made her blood boil for a long time, perhaps, because her strength had become stronger for too long, so strong that she didn't need a companion. Boom! At this time, there was a muffled sound, and the gate of the small courtyard was kicked open. Where's the woman in red? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. National Games online game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 146. Where's the woman in red? A pair of guards in silver armor burst in. There are still words in their mouths, in fact, where are they here to arrest Gongsunli, but they can also take this opportunity to inquire about this demon-killing meeting, and maybe they can be annihilated in one fell swoop. However, when the leading guard walked into the small courtyard, he was instantly attracted by Gongsunli in the courtyard. My lord, I know her, she is the stranger who followed the old blind man that day. The lead guard was a middle-aged man, surrounded by silver armor and armor on his head. Hear the report from the men behind you. A flash of desire flashed in the man's eyes. This woman is so stunning, no wonder it will make my men forget. Now, I really picked up a treasure, such a woman, if she grabs it as a tribute, it is a pity, so she will be imprisoned in my house and raised. Looking at Gongsunli's beautiful face, the man seemed to have seen his happy life in the future. Zhu Shun, what do you mean by breaking into my house with someone? At this time, a hoarse voice sounded, it was the old blind man, who knew who it was even if he couldn't see. This Zhu Shun is specially responsible for grabbing tribute on these days of the Fuyu festival. For decades, he has been in charge of the tribute, and it can be said that he has no idea how much blood there is on his hands. Ha 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 ha. Old blind man, you're still alive. When Zhu Shun saw the old blind man, the expression on his face suddenly became a little contemptuous. Tell me, you've lived so long, are you stupid or smart? Zhu Shun gritted his teeth and said. You know that our guards in Qiyao City can't tolerate your demon-slaying society, but now it's okay, you still dare to take in outsiders by yourself? See for yourself. Zhu Shun waved his hand, and suddenly another pair of guards walked in. However, these guards carried several people, each of them unconscious, and judging by the clothes on their bodies, they should be outsiders, and only one was a local. You. Although the old blind man couldn't see, he could still feel it. Tell you the old blind man, so that the people of your demon-slaying society can die clearly. Zhu Shun coldly glanced at the people in the courtyard. Originally, I thought that your killing demons would be unpleasant, but now it's okay. This year the tribute is not enough. The city lord ordered to arrest outsiders, see one and catch one. No, I heard that you took in outsiders here, so I came over. Old blind man, you say, do you count this as a cover-up? If I take this opportunity to kill you to kill the demon slayer completely, will you be added to the rank of knight? Ha 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 ha. As soon as Zhu Shun's words fell, there was another burst of laughter. Obviously, he was in a good mood today. It's really lucky, the opponent who has been fighting for decades is going to become history today, and I will also harvest a little lady, ha 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 ha. Zhu Shun said without scruples, but he didn't notice the murderous intent that flashed in Gongsunli's eyes. Wolf ambition. Zhang Quan immediately took a step forward and stood in front of Zhu Shun. I'm telling you, with my demon-slaying meeting, today, you won't be able to succeed. Zhang Quan waved his hand, and the remaining dozen or so members of the demon-slaying club quickly stepped forward and blocked Gongsunli and a few people behind him. Girl, old man, let's go quickly. At this time, the member of the demon-slaying society who was holding the colorful clothes said eagerly. And Ki couldn't cry at this time, and Gongsunli, who was watching, was distressed for a while. Come, sister, hug. It's girl. The members of the demon-slaying society were stunned, but he didn't find a trace of fear on Gongsunli's face. Even more calm than the old blind man. Alas! The old blind man sighed heavily. Girl, I know you have the ability, and here, I beg you, to leave here with your colored clothes, and never to come back. The old blind man touched the face of the colorful clothes, and said to Gongsunli in a somewhat pleading tone. Even though, he didn't think Gongsunli would be able to escape. But there is a silver lining. Hand over that woman. Suddenly, a burst of shouts came. It was Zhu Shun's voice. He finally met such a stunning world, how could he let it go easily? Even now he thinks that this demon-killing meeting is no longer important, so let's get Gongsunli first. After all, the demon-slaying club is in Qiyao City, and you can't run, but the beauty can run. Ki, can my sister take you to see the excitement? Gongsunli didn't seem to be affected in the slightest, and said this sentence to Ki. Sister. Sister. Let's run. Ki grinned and said vaguely, and a little face also cried into a little flower cat. At this time, everyone was looking at Gongsunli, hoping that she would leave quickly with her colorful clothes. Finally, Gongsun left. Quick, girl, I'll send you out. A member of the Demon Slayer Club stretched out a hand, hoping to escape with Gongsunli. Zhang Quan's heart was a little more at ease. Even if they all died today, at least, Ki could still save a life. But the next moment, his mouth opened wide. Girl, you. What are you doing? Zhang Quan's eyes widened and he stammered when he spoke. No need. I saw Gongsunli faintly spit out 3 words to the member of the demon-slaying society, and then walked in the direction of grabbing Shun with his colorful clothes. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. Ha ha ha. See? You big men, there is not a single woman who is interested. Zhu Shun immediately burst out laughing when he saw this. He thought that Gongsunli knew that he couldn't escape, so he gave up resisting. After all, it was not that there were no such outsiders before. Girl, you. The old blind man shouted from behind, but he never spoke. Am I really looking at the wrong person? No. No way, the purity in her, I can't feel it's wrong. The old blind man thought to himself. Ki, keep your eyes open for a while, remember not to close your eyes. Gongsunli walked away while comforting Ki, and Ki's eyes were full of doubts. She didn't know why she was walking in the direction of the guards. Hee, girl, if you are interested, I won't feed you medicine, you will stand behind me, and when I finish solving the matter in front of me, I will take you home. Grasping Shun looked at Gongsunli, who came to his eyes, and said with a smile. Earn big, buy one get one free. Zhu Shun thought very dirty. And in the next moment, he suddenly found that the woman in red in front of him had disappeared like this. What are you? The next moment, a faint female voice reached his ears. Not good. Zhu Shun was shocked, but it was too late. National Games online game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 147. Moving like thunder, like the river and the sea. Zhu Shun only felt a pain in his back, as if he had been inserted by a sharp blade. Then, he felt a huge force on his body, and flew forward directly and uncontrollably. In the air, he turned his head to look behind him, and saw that all the guards he had brought with him were flying uncontrollably in the air like him. And the maple leaves in the sky are falling one after another, and this scene is a bit poignant. Poof! This time, he clearly heard the sound of a sharp blade thrust into his body. And, he saw clearly, it wasn't a blade at all, but a red maple leaf. Who is this woman? As soon as this thought appeared in Zhu Shun's mind, an explosion sounded in his chest the next moment. Then the whole person lost consciousness. And at this moment, the entire small courtyard was littered with the corpses of the guards, and a red maple leaf was inserted in the fatal part of each corpse. There are even some red leaves that have penetrated the armor and shot directly into the person's body. And before taking a breath, these guards were still blocking the door of the small courtyard with a menacing attitude. Just one breath. At this time, the entire courtyard was extremely quiet, except for the sound of napping from time to time from Yo-Yo. The old blind man, Ki, and all the members of the demon-slaying club were all stupid at this time. What did they just see? I saw Gongsunli holding the colorful clothes and walking in front of Zhu Shun, and then suddenly the figure disappeared and appeared directly behind Zhu Shun. As for her original location, only a red umbrella remained. Then, they saw Gongsunli wave his hand casually, and an invisible wave of chi directly blew all the guards up. The sky didn't know when the maple leaves began to fall, and Gongsunli reached out to catch a handful of maple leaves and threw them out. And it was her casual flick that turned out to be a sharp weapon for killing. But in the blink of an eye, only the red figure was still standing. Sister! Sister! Gongsunli rubbed his eyes in disbelief, and then glanced at the guard who had fallen to the ground and was lifeless. Sister! It's amazing. Ki's face was filled with a smile again. She? Who the hell is she? Zhongquan felt that his head had completely shut down. I'll leave the rest to you. Gongsunli looked at Zhongquan, then glanced at the corpses all over the ground, and went back to the house directly. Yes. B. Zhongquan stammered and agreed. Until now, the members of the demon-slaying society who are all over the courtyard are still like sculptures, and they can't come back to their senses for a long time. An hour later. In the courtyard of the old blind man, the whole courtyard has been restored to its former cleanliness at this time, but in the middle of the courtyard, there are still dozens of unconscious people. These people were all people who had just been caught by the guards as tribute, but they were all fed medicine and couldn't wake up. Now, there are more than a dozen members of the Demon Slaying Association, led by Zhongquan, all of them standing respectfully in the courtyard, facing the room where Gongsunli was. The old blind man and Ki stood at the front. Grandpa, what's wrong? Why don't you call my sister out? Ki took the hand of the old blind man and asked innocently. Shh. The old blind man held out a finger and put it to his mouth. Don't talk, don't make a noise to my sister. When my sister wants to come out, she will come out. Ki nodded obediently, and then hammered her own leg. They have been standing for a long time. What is her identity, and what is the purpose of coming to Kiyao City? In the crowd, Zhongquan lowered his head and pondered. The strength that Gongsunli had shown just now could be said to be something they had never seen before. With such strength, it will never be an unknown person. Da-da. Suddenly, there was a rush of footsteps at the gate of the small courtyard. Then, several figures poured in. Ahh. Ajing. I saw a middle-aged woman come in and rush straight to a few people lying on the ground. There, a middle-aged man in a black robe was closing his eyes, which was Ajing in the eyes of the woman. He was also the only local among the few people who were arrested. The lady was followed by nearby neighbors, who had just watched the guards take Ajing away. Hurry, sister-in-law, don't make any noise, it's not good to be noisy to adults. The people of the Demon Slayer Society saw the woman crying loudly and hurriedly stepped forward to help her. Your Excellency. The person who killed the guard just now hasn't left yet. As soon as he heard the words of the members of the Demon Slaying Society, a trace of fear flashed on the faces of the neighbors who followed the woman, and they couldn't help but take a few steps back. Oh my God, if you kill the guards and don't leave, are you waiting here to die? How could such a fierce man be here? Why don't we go back first? It's terrible that such a murderer is here. At this moment, these neighbors thought a lot, and even many people retreated. But looking at Ajing, who was still lying on the ground, he remembered that Ajing took care of himself on weekdays, and he also stubbornly stayed. Sister-in-law, don't be excited, Ajing has been fed the 5 absolute pills, and his life will not be in danger. The people of the Demon Slayer Society patiently explained to the woman. 5 peerless pills, this is something that every tribute has to eat before paying tribute, so as to facilitate the actions of the demon seed. Without an antidote, you won't wake up, and you'll starve to death. Now these people on the ground have obviously taken this elixir. When the woman heard the words of the members of the Demon Slaying Society, her emotions suddenly became excited. By the way, Demon Slayer, I know you, didn't you just say that the adult hasn't left yet? Where is she? I'll beg you, and you'll find a way to save Ajing. The woman grabbed the hand of the Demon Slayer and said eagerly. Sister-in-law, you. The members of the Demon Slaying Society are also in trouble, and they don't know what to do now. Your Majesty is in this room, isn't you? Right here, right. The woman glanced at the room from time to time as the people of the Demon Slayer Guild cleared out. On the spot, he knelt down in front of the house. My lord, I know that you have great powers, Ajing, please save my family, Ajing. My family's Ajing treats people on weekdays and saves countless people, and this year, I just took in a few outsiders in the pharmacy, and I was killed like this by the guards. My lord, Ajing has never done anything bad in his life, I know that adults are kind-hearted, please beg my lord. The woman wept and kowtowed, without any regard for her image. And the people of the Demon Slayer Society are not blocking it, and it is not blocking it. The neighbors who came with the woman also had red eyes when they saw the woman's state. They are all people who have received the favor of Ajing. Ajing is in this area, he is a well-known Langzhong, whether he has money or not, you can see a doctor from him. And every year during the Fuyu festival, outsiders will be admitted to spend the night in their own shops, but this year, because the number of tributes is not enough, the entire pharmacy has been served in one pot. As soon as they thought of this, these neighbors also came up. He knelt down after the woman. My lord, please save Ajing, people like him shouldn't end up like this. National Games Online Game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 148. Please, sir. All of a sudden, outside Gongsunli's room, there were people kneeling. Even though they knew that Gongsun was terrible, they still chose to stay and intercede. And the people of the Demon Slayer Society did not stop it. Jing, they also know each other, they are usually very good to everyone, and they are veritable great and good people. It's so pathetic. Yes, I just saw Gongsunli's might, but I didn't expect such a sad thing to happen again before I had time to be happy. The guards of this city really deserve to die, and the soul of the living is used as a sacrifice, which is really cruel to the extreme. It's a pity. I don't know if Gongsunli can be saved. I don't know, if I can save it. Gongsunli shouldn't see death without help, so many people have knelt down. What do you know, kneeling is the way it should be. You forgot to be in Bayun City, now it's worth saving it. Anyway, I feel like I can definitely save it. Anyway, Gongsunli is now also gaining a foothold in the demon slaying society. If he can save these people, I'm afraid he can also gain a firm foothold among the people of Qiyao City. Alas, sadly, I am so glad to be born in such a peaceful country. In the live broadcast room, watching this scene, the audience was a little unbearable. After all, the scene of so many people kneeling on the ground now is still very shocking. Squeak. Finally, a sound came. The closed door finally opened. Gongsunli walked out of it barefoot. If only I had a beautiful sister in the future. Looking at Gongsunli's pretty face, Ki thought in her heart, while the other members of the demon slaying club all lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at them. Please, my lord, I'll kowtow to you. Seeing Gongsun leaving, the woman hurriedly threw herself to the ground. The neighbors behind him saw it and hurriedly followed suit. Your Excellency. Zhang Quan took a step forward and looked at Gongsun. His expression was a little nervous, he was afraid that he would quarrel with Gongsun. If Gongsun is angry, then don't think about any of these people. Go get a bowl of water. Gongsun walked in front of a few people lying on the ground and ordered directly. Hurry up, don't delay the adults' time. Zhang Quan immediately ordered. A member of the Demon Slayer Club hurriedly ran over to fetch water. These 5 absolute pills, in the eyes of others, may be helpless to remove the antidote. But in her place, solving these 5 unique pills is just a gesture. My lord, the water is coming. Soon, the members of the Demon Slayer Club came running over with a bowl of water. Your Excellency. Gongsun looked at the bowl of water handed to him, and with a flick of his hand on his side, a drop of crystal liquid fell into the water, instantly merging with the water. Okay, this bowl of water, just give them to drink separately. Huh. Hearing Gongsun words, the members of the Demon Slaying Society who were holding the water were stunned for a moment. He thought the bowl of water in his hand was still ordinary water. Boy, if you are told to do it, you can do it. At this time, the old blind man who had been silent spoke, although he couldn't see it, but he could guess 1 or 2, and there was always Ki beside him to explain it. After hearing this, the member of the Demon Slaying Club suddenly felt a spirit. Just now he almost forgot who the person in front of him was. Yes, sir. Immediately agreed, and walked towards a few people lying on the ground with water. Hey, 2 people are here to help. Suddenly, the little courtyard was busy again, and the woman on the ground stopped crying at this time, and looked at her husband with wide eyes. They couldn't believe what they saw at this time, these 5 peerless pills. In the entire Qiyao city, they had asked countless merchants, but there was no antidote. But now, it seems that someone really can solve it. And Gongsun looked at all this lightly. Just now, what she melted into the water was nothing more than a drop of her own blood. And in her blood, there was a spring of life stored in it, and she herself didn't expect that the spring of life water she drank before leaving the Suanwei mountain range would be used one day. Your Excellency. Soon, the people of the Demon Slayer Society fed the bowl of water. And the unconscious man lying on the ground seemed to have a little movement at this moment. Ahem. Finally, Ajing coughed twice and slowly opened his eyes. When the woman saw Ajing wake up, she threw herself on the spot. Ajing. You're finally awake. Ajing, how are you feeling? It's just that at this time, Ajing still seems to be a little weak and can't speak. The woman looked Ajing up and down, as if she was afraid of any sequelae, and then suddenly, as if she thought of something, she turned around and knelt down for Gongsunli. Thank you for saving your life. Concubine. Kowtow to you. The woman bowed down again to her grandson. And the neighbors who followed her also thanked her at this time. After such a fuss, dozens of people who were originally unconscious have already woken up. They have also figured out the beginning and end of the matter, and know that Gongsunli saved them. So they thanked one after another. No, it's just a gesture. Gongsunli couldn't stand it anymore, so he waved his hand. My lord, thanks to you this time, otherwise, our family would be completely ruined. The guards in this city are really getting more and more excessive. They dare to be so bold this year. When I go back, I will definitely warn our vendors there not to come to Kiyeo City during the Fuyu festival. Yes, who would dare to come here with the guards of Kiyeo City doing this? If you want me to say, they all deserve to die. These guys, they look like dogs on weekdays, but they don't do anything. Really, this time I almost affected DRAI, but fortunately, I was rescued by adults. I said, why don't you just move the whole city and make it an empty city? It's okay for you guys from other places, like our locals, even if you want to go, you don't know where to go. At this time, those who had been hit by the 5 peerless pills had almost recovered. I couldn't help but scold the neighbors present. For the guards in the city, this time, everyone hated it to the extreme. I wish I could eat his flesh and drink his blood. And Ajing in the crowd glanced at Gongsunli from time to time at this time, and then his eyes were full of doubts. What's wrong? But the Lord saved you, and we have to repay the Lord well. The woman was standing next to Ajing and whispered. No, ma'am, I just think that this adult resembles a character I have heard of lately. Ajing said, turning his head. Xiao Yang. What's wrong, brother Ajing? Suddenly, a man in his 20s ran over. This man was one of the foreign traders that Ajing had taken in. Xiao Yang, do you remember what you told me 2 days ago, that there is a master of Suanwei who often holds an umbrella? Ajing frowned and said, he clearly remembered what Xiao Yang had told him when he first entered the city. What do you say? A new power lord has appeared in Bayun city, who is beautiful and will hold an umbrella in his hand at any time. When Xiao Yang heard Ajing's words, his eyes suddenly lit up. What's the matter, brother Ajing? You still want to hear the story of the Lord of Suanwei? I just heard the old man in Bayun city say a few words, the real Lord of Suanwei. I have never seen it. But don't say it, I really like to. Xiao Yang suddenly gushed endlessly. These traders, traveled from south to north, and saw and heard a lot. And in this Kiyeo city, he was idle and bored some time ago, so he gave Ajing what he heard when he was listening to a book in Bayun city. He thought that Ajing wanted to hear it again. No, what's wrong, brother Ajing? Suddenly, Xiao Yang found that Ajing's attention was not here. Xiao Yang, have you noticed, this adult, she also holds an umbrella, and she is also extremely beautiful. Ajing retracted his gaze and looked at Xiao Yang and said. No. Won't it? Xiao Yang was startled, retreated again and again, slipped under his feet and sat on the ground carelessly. The people in the courtyard immediately looked over. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. National Games online game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 149. This Xiao Liang felt that everyone was watching him, but he couldn't get up. Because he clearly felt that Gongsunli's gaze was also on him. It's Lord. Xiao Liang complained bitterly in his heart, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He himself never imagined that he would one day see such a heavy weight with his own eyes. I didn't expect that such a noble big man would save the life of an ordinary person. This mysterious lord is pure and good by nature, and he is a rare and good person. At this time, he recalled in his mind the character of the Lord of Suanwei who had listened to the storyteller in Baiyun City. When he no longer hesitated, he turned around and knelt down towards Gongsunli with a plop. Villain. The villain is called. It's called Xiao Liang. I've seen it. I've seen the Lord of Forces. Xiao Liang knelt on the ground and stammered. And the other people in the small courtyard were all dumbfounded when they heard his words. Momentum. Lord of Forces. She's the leader of a faction. No wonder it's so powerful. I should have thought that the one who had the guts to kill the guards of Qiyao City must be the one who is the main powerhouse of one side. Everyone in the audience was shocked, but at the same time, it felt very reasonable. The villain, Jing, has seen the power lord, Gongsunli. At this time, Jing was the first to react and knelt on the ground first. The others immediately followed, and even the people of the demon-slaying society knelt down together. The villain will kill demons. I've seen the Lord of Forces. The villain is old and blind, and he has seen the power lord. Little girl I've seen the Lord of Forces. This scene once again hit the hearts of the audience in the live broadcast room. I said, the name of this power lord is really so useful. Ha ha ha, what's this? Obviously the flow of information is slow. Now Gongsunli is the lord of Baiyun City. They don't know. This kind of status of being respected everywhere you go is really obsessive. Who's to say it's not? That's power. Tisk, the strong, you should be treated like this. It's really powerful. The three words of the power lord are almost synonymous with the strong. Aren't you talking nonsense? If you're not strong, you can't be the power lord. It's another time when a dragon crosses the river. I don't know if this time I can hold down the head snake. You say, Gongsunli won't take another city so soon, right? In the live broadcast room, seeing the scene in the small courtyard now, Xiaoguo's audience said that it was like watching a TV series. In such a world of the jungle, there is nothing wrong with this, but I don't know what the scene will be like when the world is connected. Don't be afraid, our country has Gongsunli, and it is already a lot ahead of other countries. Alas! In the small courtyard, Gongsunli was not surprised by the scene in front of him. What's more, she has really been used to seeing the scene recently. After experiencing the kneeling of tens of thousands of people in Baiyun City last time, she didn't bother at all about the ordinary scene. Get up. Gongsun moved his lips. Thank you, sir. Ki hurriedly thanked him, then stood up and patted the dirt on his legs, staring at Gongsunli with a pair of bright eyes. Ki, you can't stick to adults like you used to. As soon as the old blind man remembered that Ki had been making trouble in Gongsunli's arms before, he couldn't help but be afraid for a while. Now that I think about it, this Gongsunli is really good-tempered. Obviously, Ki didn't think so, because she seemed to have seen Gongsunli secretly smiling at her just now. I'm going to learn from my sister. Ki silently made up her mind in her heart. I will also let people be afraid of me when they hear my name. All right, it's okay, let's go back. Seeing that things were done, Gongsunli didn't want to get together with so many people. However, these people did not leave. My lord, why don't you come with me to live at my house? Oh, I don't mean anything else. The old blind man and the colorful clothes have passed, and the food prepared by our family for the Fuyu festival has not been eaten yet. Jing clenched his fists and said to Gongsunli. He really didn't dare to think that as a power lord, living here these days, the daily conditions would be so bad. And when he heard his words, the old blind man who wanted to refute was also stagnant, but his family's conditions were a little worse. I didn't know before, but now I know the identity of Gongsunli. If I am forced to stay, I am afraid it will not be good. No need. Unexpectedly, Gongsunli refused by himself. Let's all go back. Gongsunli repeated it again, then glanced at the old blind man, turned around and went into the house. This. Ajing was speechless. He really didn't know Gongsunli's character. But the old blind man seemed to know something. Take a step forward. All right, everyone, let's not guess what the adults think. Let's all go back, but be careful, the city lord, I'm afraid he won't give up. The old blind man arched his hand and said. We're fine, the key is your demon-slaying club. At this time, Ajing said again. These days, you should also stop, on weekdays, although we don't have much communication, but we are also familiar with each other, after this time, really, stop a little. Ajing's tone was a little regretful. The demon-slaying society, no one in Qiyao City didn't know. It's just that everyone hid because they were afraid, but they didn't expect to get together today. Thank you DRAI for the reminder, Demon Slayer Society, this is hidden, you can rest assured. Zhang Quan stepped forward. Everyone, don't bother your lords. Well, in that case, then we'll leave. Yes, I'll send my meat over in a moment and make something good for the adults. Yes, and my unsold goods are also delivered, maybe some adults will be interested. Everyone immediately began to talk about it. Then he bowed to the room where Gongsun was and left together. Alas! The old blind man waved the cane in his hand twice, and the members of the demon-slaying society in the courtyard quickly retreated. Ki, you'll cook in a while. Zhang Quan, you come in with me. The old blind man made some arrangements, and then took Zhang Quan into the room where Gongsunli was. Your Excellency. As soon as they entered the room, the two saw Gongsunli, who was sitting at the edge of the table waiting for them. Chang'an, where is the entrance? Gongsunli didn't talk nonsense, and asked directly. The old blind man sighed, and began to speak slowly. At this time, the news of the annihilation of Zushun's people and horses also spread throughout the city. Quick! Gather the men. Kill me. National Games Online Game, transform into Gongsunli at the beginning. Author, show your secrets. Chapter 150. The entire Qiyao city has just finished the rich festival. Even before the lanterns in the city could be removed, the whole city was already in chaos. Every street in the city was crossed by a contingent of guards from time to time. It is clear that the whole city has entered a state of martial law. The street, which was bustling a few days ago, has become empty at this time, and even some domestic animals such as chickens and ducks have escaped from the house, and no one dares to catch them. What the hell is going on? Why is it that it was so good in the morning, and suddenly it was like this? I don't know, but aren't these 2 days the day of tribute? Go. Don't talk nonsense, you'll just talk about something unlucky. That's not it. I went out for a stroll in the morning and saw that Zhu Shun leading the men and horses towards the demon-slaying society. Really? Isn't that? In Qiyao City, all the gates were closed, and the people did not know what was going on. But you can guess a little, on this day, the only big thing is to pay tribute. This news is not good news. If there is a real problem with the tribute, maybe these guards will arrest people indiscriminately. Well, once a year, when is this the first time? Many of the residents sat behind the door, sighing and observing the movements of the guards outside. This damn demon seed. At the same time, many people also cursed in their hearts, but they didn't have the courage to say it. Qiyao City, on the square in front of the city lord's mansion. At this time, a large wave of silver has gathered, and all of them are the guards of Kiyeo City. Because Kiyeo City is so big, it will take time to mobilize guards. Even now, there are still quite a few guards coming from all directions. In front of the guards, a burly figure stood. However, the iron armor covered the face, so that people couldn't see his face clearly. He is the leader of the Guardian Army of Kiyeo City, the famous Iron Mask. Under normal circumstances, he would never appear in front of people with such fanfare. Except for one time he commanded the guard 40 years ago, this is it. It is enough to see how big the movement of the guards was this time. A power lord, lurking in my Kiyeo City during the Fuyu festival, is really not a small plan. Iron Mask thought to himself. Zhu Shun was pulled up by him, and now, Zhu Shun is dead, and there is a depression in his heart that is eager to vent. Since you are a power lord, I guess the demon seed will like your soul very much, so this year, I can only catch you. Looking at the more and more guards gathered in front of him, Iron Mask also felt a little confident in his heart. I have to say that he is full of pride, and he dares to challenge a power lord as the commander of a city guard, which is an appalling thing. Come to think of it, this power lord is also a stunned young man, and his strength is not much stronger. If you are an old power lord, you will definitely not dare to come to my Kiyeo City to spread wild. It's just another clown. Iron Mask looked at the high morale guards in front of him, and felt more and more awesome. His reputation in the city of Seven Dawn was so loud that his name could make others afraid. Therefore, he also developed this conceited character. Report. At this time, a petty officer ran over with the order flag in his hand. Report to the Iron Mask commander. All the guards in the city have been assembled except for the necessary guards on duty. Iron Mask agreed, and glanced at the team of people in front of him. A flash of pride flashed in his eyes. Let's go. Exterminate the outsiders. Yes. The junior officer of Linky immediately agreed, and then turned around and ran out. Toot. Toot. A bugle sounded. Let's go. Goal. Qingyun Lane. The army was in full swing in an instant. Qingyun Lane is the alley where Gongsunli is located. And such a big fight, but the target is a small alley, it's ridiculous to say it. However, Tai Mian felt that it was worth it. This time, my goal, in addition to the Power Master, is to directly exterminate the demon-slaying society. Decades of organization, today, I will uproot you, and I will not let go of any of them. Iron Mask thought viciously in his heart. For decades, he has been fighting with the Demon Slayer Society for decades, and almost all of the bad things every year come from the Demon Slaying Society. This time, he wanted to take this opportunity to go straight once and for all. Knock knock. The army stepped on the ground, making a dull sound, and just listening to it made people's hearts a little unbearable. That kind of resonance is really uncomfortable. An Iron Mask looked at the silver torrent in front of him, covering his face under the mask, and leaked a bloodthirsty smile. Extermination, extermination, extermination. Tens of thousands of guards walked the streets of Kiyeo City with great fanfare. There are also words in the mouth. Residents on both sides of the street were peeking out through the cracks in their doors. Tut! How many years? I've lived half my life, and this is the first time I've seen a guard act of this magnitude. Looking at their direction, it should be Qingyun Lane. It is estimated that this year's tribute mission was destroyed by the Demon Killing Society. Alas, the Demon Slayer will. From today onwards, you shouldn't be able to see that old blind man again, right? You said, on weekdays, we always hide from the people of the Demon Slaying Society, but now we say that we are going to be exterminated. Our Kiyeo City, will we be the only one in the future? In the future, no one will ever resist the matter of paying tribute. Hey, actually, when I was young, I really wanted to join the demon slaying society, how majestic, but at that time we had just gotten married, and I was reluctant to let you go. Actually, if you had gone at that time, I would have followed you, but now, alas. Haha, everyone is afraid of the demon slaying society, afraid that it will bring trouble to themselves, but everyone admires the demon slaying society. In this city, it is the most courageous group of people. In the various portals, the voice of chatting is getting quieter and quieter, and it sounds quite emotional. And many old people have even shed tears. The demon slaying society, every resident of Kiyeo City knows. However, every resident of Kiyeo City did not dare to mention it, because not everyone dared to resist like the people in the demon slaying society. Although they usually have some taboo about these 4 words, whenever they think of them, they still admire those people in their hearts. That's the end of it, though. The history of the demon slaying society is over after all. The heroes of the demon slaying society failed to save Kiyeo City from fire and water after all. Looking at the dust raised by the army of guards passing by the doorway, a sadness rose in everyone's hearts. Unconsciously reached out and wiped his eyes.